This podcast thanks to OFX, the experts in global money transfer. Transfer funds 24/7 with no hidden fees. The smart money's on the smart move. Go to OFX.com.
The Informed Investor, thanks to Century 21. Smarter, bolder, faster. Go to century21.com.au.
Well, a motor vehicle might be the second most expensive item you buy in your lifetime. Your house is the most expensive, or indeed an investment property. The man who knows more about real estate around the country, particularly in areas where you might find it a bit tricky to get proper advice, is the chairman of Century 21, Charles Tarbey, who joins us every Monday night. Great to have you with us in the studio again.
Thank you, Steve.
The investment in real estate, it appears that we keep getting these doomsayers saying, oh, well, the market's going to collapse, it's going to fall by, I think the latest is Moody's suggesting Sydney house prices will fall 4.2%. When they say that, it doesn't actually mean that if your house is worth X now, when you try and sell it in a month's time, it's going to be worth 4.2% less than it is, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I think the most important thing is that these guys are looking at it a little bit more realistically. They're not sensationalising it. They're not selling books or seminars. They're looking at good, straightforward stats, and they've watched how the market's moved. And I guess anybody can sit back and see that the market's gone through where it should have gone in terms of pricing in some areas, particularly in New South Wales and Melbourne. And we're going to have a correction. That correction is something that we should expect after every boom cycle, and I think it's wonderful to see that this sort of information comes out and it's not frightening people. It's really just telling people, hey, get ready for a change. Don't expect too much. If you're going to buy something today, don't expect it to go up next month. And they're even talking about, Moody's are even talking about the fact that, oh, don't worry, next year we think it's going to start to grow again. I don't know that any of us get it right, Steve, because if we all got it right, we would have all bought a lot more real estate about 3 or 4 years ago. But I think you get a fair idea because there's so much data out there now.
If you'd like to speak with Charles, have a question about any real estate investment you might be intending to make, regions around the country that you might like some advice on, particularly those regions just on the fringes of our major capital cities where you might think you might be able to get a bargain. 131 873 is our number. Charles is here with us, 131 873. So if you were to look at the Sydney market in general, the clearance rates are what now, down to about 60 and a bit percent?
Look, if you look at them just from the weekend when it goes, and then of course it starts to drop down when more and more reports come in. The Sydney action was actually not too bad. It came in at 67.8%. Melbourne was 68.9%. But the star of the show was Adelaide, of all places, 69.7%.
Really?
Yeah, Adelaide's an area, Adelaide and Perth are areas that I love watching very closely because they never get talked about as much as Sydney and Melbourne. Brisbane, you hear about Brisbane all the time. Everywhere you turn, somebody's selling real estate in Brisbane, but you never hear much about Adelaide and Perth. And those two marketplaces have had a very, very interesting time. Adelaide, a nice, steady movement all the way through. It's had its adjustments. They've been steady. Perth, of course, was incredibly dramatic, and now it's starting to change. So I think that people focus too much on Sydney and Melbourne. I guess there's a good reason for it, but in reality, a lot of opportunity is missed, Steve. But 67.5%, when you count everything up, it probably drops down to 55 to 60%. And again, if that means that every property that's coming on the market right now, that only 55 out of 100 are selling, that's telling you that, hey, this is probably a good time for you to really have a close look at real estate and not rush into it.
Do you find, with your vast experience, that people, when buying an investment property as opposed to somewhere to live, are reluctant to buy somewhere not in the city they live in?
Yeah, look, I find that a lot, and obviously, if you're trying to buy an investment,
is that a fear you should have?
I think it is. I get frightened when you buy property a long, long way away from where you live. That one's a scary one for me because I do that in my business because my corporate offices are based in each capital city. But if I'm looking at an investment, a lot of people have a tendency to get attracted to new stuff, and they get attracted to holiday stuff, and they hear.
I was going to ask you about that because you've got Easter coming up. What invariably happens, and I do it myself. I'll go to a beachside area for Easter. The first thing I'll do is I'll go and get a coffee. then I'll go and walk down to the local real estate agent, probably a Century 21, start looking at the ads in the window and go, I could buy that.
That's right, and how funny it is too. I
that.
remember an interesting stat that came out that said 83% of real estate agents believe you don't need a shop front, you can work from upstairs. And a reporter rang me and said, what's your view on that? I said, would you publish what I said? And he said, yeah. I said, tell the 83% of real estate agents to hurry up and go upstairs so we can stay downstairs and mingle with the local community. Looking in real estate agents' windows is a great Australian pastime.
Oh, it's fantastic, and going to open inspections, even if you're not really going to pull the checkbook out, particularly if you're in an idyllic seaside. You can be on the south coast of New South Wales. I mean, tragically at the moment, smashed up by those fires. But you can go to the Central Coast. You're in Queensland. Walk up and down the main street of Noosa, find the real estate agent, and go, well, there you go. There's my retirement home. I'm going to go and live there.
And it happens every
Sun's
holiday.
Shining, got shorts and thongs on, and t-shirt.
Every holiday.
Sand on your feet.
And maybe a couple of glasses of red wine under your belt
right.
as well.
Craig's in Parramatta. How are you, Craig?
Yeah. Hello, gentlemen. How's things?
G'day, Craig.
Yeah, we're great, thanks.
I've currently got an investment property at Bathurst in regional New South Wales. And I'd just like to get your ideas and thoughts about the prospective growth, etc., in that area.
Yeah,
duplex.
How long have you had the property for, Craig?
July last year.
Okay, well, look, the interesting thing about Bathurst is there's a lot of things happening towards Bathurst and beyond when you go all the way through to Orange. That whole area, the roads are being upgraded. It's just brilliant. There's still growth in the Bathurst area, in my view. A lot of the regional areas are still feeling the halo effect of the capital city markets. And Bathurst is just one of those towns that I firmly believe has got a great amount of potential because of the infrastructure that's getting there.
The university, for a start.
Yeah, and look, there is, the prisons there, of course, there's a lot of employment from that, but even when you go beyond Bathurst and you get to Orange, again, it's one of those capital cities that has tremendous amount of government-funded work. So those two areas, and they're getting easier and easier to get to. The road is getting better and better. There are quite a few radar traps on the way there. I've been caught there before. But I particularly like Bathurst as a city, and I think it's coming of age. The restaurant scene is changing there. I was there recently. Of course, Bathurst is Bathurst Races is the big thing there, and that's
what
massive.
Encouraged you to buy there, Craig?
It was in my budget, and the property growth was interesting, and basically it was in my budget and close to Sydney. The property.
Yeah, if you bought a year ago, you will have already had some growth in Bathurst.
Good to hear. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good on you, Craig. I mean, those are the places you need to look for. I mean, and when we're sitting around day after day having a discussion, Charles, about how the cities are overcrowded and how we've got to encourage people to move out in regional Australia. It's those sorts of places there. If you can get in there early and get a bargain, grab a bargain for yourself, that's going to be something that people need to really seriously think at looking at.
Absolutely. I'm amazed by that city. I was out there recently visiting Troy and Tracy Carney, the principals of Century 21 there, and watching the growth of their business and the energy. But just the whole township, Steve, is changing, and it's really becoming quite a beautiful place to visit, just to get away, as I mentioned earlier, the restaurant scene, and going for a beautiful drive in the country. It's a fabulous place. And some of those regions right across Australia exist, and I believe regional areas have still got growth left in them.
So when you talk about Adelaide, and would you talk about Adelaide as an investment? And if so, are there parts of the South Australian capital where you would target?
They have had some pretty tough times there, as you know, with industry, and that's probably what's balanced it out. It's funny how you haven't heard anything like that out of the major capital cities, so they've just floated along. But Adelaide has been on not a roller coaster ride that you might see in Orlando, but one you might see in a kiddies park. It's had its ups and downs, and that's what's kept it strong. And I believe that there are coastal areas in Adelaide. When you go down south towards Aldinga and Carricalinga and those places, there's some
now, Charles,
stunning.
I would never correct you because you know more about real estate than anyone in the country.
What did I say?
Aldinga.
Oh, Aldinga.
I'm a South Australian, born and bred in Adelaide.
All right,
You've got to get it right.
All right. Well, there's some places in New Zealand. There's one place that's spelt WONE.
You'll
hunger,
get yourself in trouble.
And one of my teams called it one hunger instead of only hunger. So I had to correct him too. But thank you for that. Aldinga. Aldinga is what they've always said.
No,
we have a
Aldinga.
fabulous office in Aldinga, and they look after a lot of coastal properties, and I'm absolutely blown away by what you can buy in that area with ocean views, all the services you need. Most of those areas are undiscovered, and I think if anybody's looking for an ocean front or an ocean view holiday home, there's not too many places.
I love that part of the world.
Yeah, not too many places you could beat with that.
Janelle in Carlingford, how are you?
Oh, well, thanks, Steve. Tweed Heads area, Benora Point, places like that. I'm looking to move up there. And
Going for Chase the Sun, Janelle?
yeah, actually, I'm over Sydney, finished with it.
Good.
And I'm going up there, but I still.
What do you reckon, Charles?
Yeah, Tweed Heads, again, it's an interesting place because, everybody thinks about Coolangatta and up to the Gold Coast, and it's not that far south that you find yourself in New South Wales and you find yourself crossing the river into Tweed Heads, south, I guess, and those areas are not as promoted as strongly as you might get with the Gold Coast or Coolangatta, and those areas have still got a tremendous amount of opportunity. Now with the airport being upgraded, on the coast in Brisbane, on the Gold Coast, that sort of area is now becoming more and more open. And I know people that have gone all the way further south, all the way down to Pottsville and purchased property. And those, again, Pottsville is like a place that people go.
Pottsville.
Not a lot of people know about it, Steve. This is an interesting thing. So Tweed Heads, I think, is great. The Commonwealth Games is probably having a bit of an impact on pricing there. I'm not sure what it's going to look like on the other side of the Commonwealth Games.
Good on you, Janelle. Thank you. That sounds from me like Charles is recommending that part of the world. Charles, always a pleasure, mate, to catch up.
I'll catch up with you in Aldinga sometime.
You will. Oh, there you go. So you'll never say Aldinga again.
No, I will never say Al again.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks,
Talk
Steve.
to you next week. Charles Tarbey, Chairman of Century 21.
The Informed Investor, thanks to Century 21. Smarter, bolder, faster. Go to century21.com.au.